Innovations in mobility are making transportation safer and more sustainable than ever before. But bringing new products and services to market is difficult and involves participation from many public and private organizations and institutions. Partnering between industry incumbents and early-stage innovators is especially important, but the different cultures can be a challenge. Established corporations need the new ideas of innovators, but they are more averse to risks. Early-stage companies need the resources of larger companies, but can become frustrated by their more cautious approach to product development. Despite best intentions on both sides, these differences can slow or even stop progress in the last mile of the commercialization process. The California Mobility Center is a unique resource created to propel future mobility innovations through the difficult final stages of bringing new products to market. The CMC provides clients and members with programs, services, access to funding, and project oversight to enhance cooperation and increase the pace of commercialization. The CMC offers advanced manufacturing, prototyping, field testing, validation, market entry, and other commercialization services. With offices and a 25,000 square foot ramp-up facility located in Sacramento, the CMC provides clients and members with a front row seat to one of the world's most influential future mobility markets. The CMC also provides opportunities for members to extend their involvement into broader future mobility areas, including policy and workforce development through committees and other CMC initiatives. By focusing on commercialization and market readiness, the CMC provides a new and valuable resource that is distinctly different from earlier stage incubators and accelerators. CMC provides the tools, resources, and vision to get more products and services off the drawing board and onto the roads. A single point of entry for California's mobility ecosystem and a gateway to markets across the globe. Learn more at californiamobilitycenter.org.
So hi everyone, my name is Neal. I'm the Director of Client Services with the California Mobility Center. And we've got a discussion today with Bill Brandt, who is Head of Business Development with Zeus Electric Chassis. So thanks for joining our session. I wanted to give a little bit of context about the California Mobility Center before we open it up to questions, or the CMC as we like to refer to it. This is a concept that's really been 3 years in the making, and it's been designed to fill a gap in the go-to-market last mile of commercialization. So understanding there's a lot of solutions out there for early stage and startup companies that are in early stages of innovation, whether they're incubators or accelerators. We recognize that there was a need for something a little bit different to help companies on their commercialization journey. So to perhaps oversimplified, incubators are in that ideation phase for companies. Accelerators are in that demonstration phase, and the California Mobility Center is designed to be the commercialization phase to help companies get their products to market and then scale up more quickly and effectively. So how is the CMC set up to do that? There's a number of different approaches that we've taken. Probably the most important one is this idea of programming and partnering with members who are more established companies, incumbents like tier one suppliers, utilities that have a need to deploy and test these technologies. As you just saw in the video there, they have this need for innovation and access to innovation that sometimes it's difficult for them to create themselves. So the CMC is designed to be this curator of these interactions between members, what we classify as members and clients. And then the third part of the puzzle is our preferred service provider network. So these are certified professionals that we've curated to help companies in a number of different service lines. So we've identified 10 different service lines that the CMC can help your company as you're scaling up and going through commercialization. And the idea is that each of these service can be used sort of as an on-demand extension of your team. So, if you have a project that you need some help on prototyping and manufacturing, the CMC can connect you to the relevant service providers. Also on workforce development, grants and subsidies. We can also help with regulatory framework and compliance work. We've created this network of service providers that will help remove the friction for going to multiple different stakeholders to get you along your path to commercialization. And lastly, on that vein, the unique approach that we've taken is this idea of infrastructure as a service as well. So the CMC has put together a 25,000 square foot workshop facility in Sacramento and 5,000 square feet of offices that will allow clients to use the tech workshop for the duration of their project, rather than having to sign a lease themselves for a period of time that maybe is longer than they need. So the whole idea is, we've got this dynamic framework where you can expand and contract your team to help you get through that valley of death, which I think is particularly important for companies innovating in the mobility space, especially if you've got any sort of hardware innovation that you're considering. So that's just a little bit of background as to what it is the CMC does. I've got Bill Brandt with me here. Bill, do you want to give a bit of an introduction? I mentioned who you're with, but maybe just give me a little intro for everybody listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. Bill Brandt here. Currently an advisor to Zeus Electric Chassis, as Neal said, working in the business development side of the operations. Zeus is a ground-up all-electric work truck chassis. We're focusing right now on, say, a work truck in the class 4 to 6 kind of range, with aspirations of and a technology roadmap to get up to class 8 and down to class 3. As far as being an all-electric work truck chassis manufacturer, we're working with a number of the vocational channel partners. So we'll work with vocations such as bucket truck. You see them all over the place, right? Bucket trucks, garbage trucks, flatbeds, dump trucks, fire and rescue, ambulance. Really where we differentiate ourselves, and you can imagine with these vocations, there's hundreds, if not thousands of OEMs that produce these bodies, integrate these bodies onto chassis and get them to the market. And I think what we are doing is enabling these body manufacturers to put their existing bodies and their existing tools on an electric chassis. So we're working with our technology partners to integrate all the electronics, all the software, all the high power electrification. And then with the chassis design, we're able to integrate mechanically onto their bodies, adjusting things like wheelbase, payload, tow capacity. And I think this is kind of where we're setting ourselves apart from other approaches that are out there. The channels for service and support are also existing. So I think we're really working with the existing industry to accelerate electrification. And I would say we've kind of grown up with the CMC. We've been kind of at this for a few years. We're talking to CMC and met Neal even 3 years ago. And, it's been a great partnership. I think we wouldn't be where we are right now if we didn't have that partnership. Neal talked about service providers and members. The CMC actually brought us our first customer in SMUD. So we'll be delivering 5 completely different vehicles to them in the next 8.5 months. We'll get them in the field and do a whole fleet adoption process. And then using some of the service providers that the CMC has been invaluable to really execute on this. So, that's my introduction, and look forward to any questions anybody has.
Thanks, Bill. So I think what you've experienced with the CMC, at least initially, is that deployment partnership service line that we talked about. SMUD is obviously one of the founding members of the CMC. SMUD is the utility that's based up here in the greater Sacramento region. They're one of the driving forces behind this. They recognize the need to create this innovation center to help companies like Zeus find the right partners for deploying new technology. So I think we can start opening it up to questions from the audience. Got one that's come in. Is CMC in need of external engineering support? I would say yes. The idea with our preferred service provider network is that we will continue growing that basis. So we're starting with 7 service providers. We have one that specializes in engineering support called Penn Motion, who are based are headquartered out of Germany, Aachen, Germany. They have been a key partner with the CMC right from the word go. Actually, what they've done in Aachen, Germany is a similar model for a ramp-up facility for hardware innovation. But yes, we're looking to grow out our preferred service provider network. So if you're a company that can provide those sorts of services, then we will be looking to build on our service provider network so we can connect you to clients in the future. Looking at other questions coming in. Is there a cost for leveraging CMC services? So the CMC is a nonprofit, and I don't know if we have that slide available that we could show, but essentially the CMC sits in the middle as a nonprofit between the 3 different groups that I talked about: the members, clients, and preferred service providers. In terms of costs to the CMC, if we're setting up a relationship between a client and a service provider, then we don't take any direct fee from the client. We have agreements with our service providers to provide a referral fee to the CMC. We also have a membership dues that we collect on the membership side. So that's how the CMC sustains itself financially. So there's no cost of the client unless they engage in a contract with a preferred service provider or directly with the CMC in terms of using the ramp-up factory that I mentioned. So if you were to utilize the ramp-up factory for space or renting equipment, then that would be a contract that we would negotiate directly. Let's see what other questions coming in. Does the CMC typically engage with startups? So how does the CMC typically engage with startups? So we have a couple of pathways to engage with us. So you can reach us through the website, fill out one of our contact forms. You can contact me directly via LinkedIn or make sure my email is readily available here for people who are interested. But the initial engagement consists of a 30-minute conversation with myself or somebody from my business development team, just to understand, what your current pain points are as a company as you're moving through your commercialization journey, and then trying to align those pain points with what we've got in our service provider network to make sure we can help you with those pain points, or if it's a service we can provide directly with the ramp up factory, then it's the first 30-minute call is designed to find out what those are, and then make sure that CMC can provide solutions for you. After that, it's a fairly simple process where we ask you to fill out a questionnaire, and then we take that internally to the CMC selection committee, and if it's deemed that there's a good fit, we contact the relevant service providers and create those meetings for us to scope out the project accordingly. So designed to remove that friction, instead of going to multiple different stakeholders, you can come to the CMC and we can curate the process. Or I always refer to it as a concierge process for clients to have somebody else that's helping them navigate all the different service providers that you can use. And then I should say, once you get to the point where Zeus is, you then become a member of the CMC for the duration of your project. So you then have the ability to interact directly with the CMC members that we have. So the idea is, once you're in that network, it can become, self-propelling, and that you can interact with more members, and hopefully, find opportunities to work with others beyond the ones who you maybe initially just interacting with. So I don't know, Bill, if you had anything to add to that in terms of how you've experienced it directly with Zeus, but that's the conceptual overview from my perspective.
Yeah, I can kind of relate, our experience. I think you mentioned a kind of a concierge kind of a approach. So when I started engaging with the CMC, the first thing I did is kind of learn what were all the services and where were the opportunity to leverage the capabilities of the CMC. So I think the first thing is to educate yourself on what's available. And then what I did is I just approached it as a business development initiative, where you can match up what their capabilities are with what your needs are, put it into a presentation, and kind of mapped out the kinds of services that Zeus would need, and then had a number of discussions with the CMC. From there, we wrote a statement of work around the kinds of things that we were going to work together on. Some of the services are well within the scope of the people within the CMC, and then other scopes of work are going to be with the service providers. So, for example, Zeus is headquartered in Minnesota. Well, there's an awful lot of knowledge that's required to penetrate the California market, right? So they suggested working with California Strategies as one of their service providers. So we did that. They again wrote a scope of work on what they can provide us. It fit perfectly with what we needed, and then we have a partner in CalStrat to help us penetrate the market, navigate any of the government agencies, learn how to gain incentives that the customers would be able to benefit from. So really, it's just a big, really very important part of that ecosystem. And it's a discussion, and like I said, it's matching capabilities with needs and opening a dialogue.
Right. Yeah, I think the benefit is you have a partner who understands the journey you're on and understands the context of everything that you've gone through. So, the CMC can provide that context to other service providers rather than starting a relationship every time from cold start. So I think that consistency of understanding that the CMC can bring to the table in any of the interactions you have with a member or a service provider is really important in terms of driving that efficiency piece. looking at some other, got some good questions coming in. So let's see, how is the CMC different than typical accelerators or incubators? That's a good question. So I think I alluded to this in the intro piece, but it differs in a number of ways. I think that's sort of the outsourced blended team approach rather than having, an in-house team that you would typically have at an incubator or an accelerator is a key differentiator. The ability to connect with end users or members, as we refer to them, is a key differentiator. I think the fact that it's market driven as well, this is any interaction you have or any relationship you have with a service provider is negotiated at a fee. It's not like an accelerator where we're taking equity stake in return for providing advice and services. This is different. So in that sense, it is typically for companies that are a little bit later on in their journey. Maybe they're at Series A or just before. So I think those are the key differentiators. And as to go back to the introduction, it's all about getting your product to market. So it's all around commercialization. So can we connect you to the relevant service providers or end users to get your product on the road or in the streets or in the sky? I think is that's at the core of what we're trying to do. Let's see if we got a question for you, Bill, there. So you're in Minnesota. You don't have to be in California to use the CMC. No, that's true. Bill, I don't know if you want to talk about your experience to date with the California market.
Yeah, so that's probably a great question. And if we're talking about e-mobility and electrification, you can do your own research. But of the 50 states in the U.S., there's 15 that are part of this U.S. Climate Alliance, with the governors all taking on the same approach as California. They are starting to identify and quantify what their mandates will be over the next 30 years. California obviously has the most aggressive fleet adoption mandates. So if you want to succeed in electrification, I think you got to be in California. If you're not from California, you want to use the CMC to leverage the network. So I think the idea is that any startups all over the country can use the CMC to penetrate California. And then as you work with the service providers, you'll understand that those companies are not just working in California, but they can support you all over the nation. So I'll go back to California Strategies. Certainly they're experts in California and help write some of the voucher programs that the California Air Research Board uses today, but they're also versed in what's happening in New York, New Jersey, for example. So it's an entry point, and then from there it can branch off to depending on what the needs are.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think, the name California Mobility Center can be a little bit misleading because a lot of people have that impression that you have to be in California to use it. But the intention of using California in the name was really to build off the fact that California is really at the epicenter of all things innovation that are happening in the clean mobility space. I think you look at the size of the market alone and the amount of early adopters there are in the EV space. Obviously, you've got Silicon Valley here, and you've got the investor network that's here. And then what I think is really strong about California is the regulatory environment is strongly aligned with the business environment. So there are a ton, as you mentioned, Bill, there's a ton of incentives and grants available here at state level to help you, commercialize your product in the clean mobility space. So that's really, what we're trying to help companies navigate. California is a great market. It is complex, as I'm sure many of you know. So the CMC is designed to try and simplify the process of using California as your your entry point and your platform for global success. So I think, some of the early partners with the CMC are already showing that, we have that global network set up. I mentioned Penn Motion, who are from Germany. We've also got a partnership with Enertech Capital, who are based out of Toronto, Canada. So this is designed to be a global approach, but California is the market where if you're successful, then it's the gold standard, and you're going to be set for success anywhere in the world. So that's the concept and the idea. I think California is the perfect place to do it for those reasons. So yeah, just looking, other questions coming in. Let me see. So a question here about mobility. So a lot of what we've talked about is mobility specific, asking if the CMC helps with infrastructure. Yes, infrastructure is a key component of what it is that we're trying to service as a nonprofit. We recognize the need that you can't have mass adoption of zero emission vehicles or electric vehicles without infrastructure being in place. So a lot of the early clients with the CMC are in the infrastructure space. We've got a ton of interest from not just SMUD, but other utilities around what it is we're doing at the CMC. So there's a clear alignment between our members and the infrastructure play. So this is something that we are focused on, and our preferred service provider network has experience in. I'll just mention another service provider we have, eSource, who have a lot of experience in the utility space and infrastructure in particular. So yes, to answer that question, infrastructure is very much part of what it is that we are putting together here. What is the best way to engage with CMC for a potential pilot referral? I would point people towards the website. There's a contact form on there. You go in and you express how you want to interact with the CMC, whether it's as a potential client or a member. If you select the client option and then fill out that form, then it gets sent straight through to me and my business development team. So that's the easiest way. Okay, so waiting for some other questions to come in. Bill, I wonder if you could talk about future plans for, expansion into California, if that's on Zeus's radar. If everything goes according to plan, what that might look like.
Yeah, let's start with market share. So I think the other thing that the CMC can provide, I mentioned that they aligned us with our first customer in SMUD, but there's a continued effort to network and provide Zeus with a platform to meet other people in other fleets. So there's a continuous amount of coordination going on with the program manager within the CMC that works directly with Zeus, and Blake is continually bringing potential customers that we can. The hardest thing, for Zeus is that you read articles and they talk about the EV truck market and they talk about everybody but Zeus because nobody knows about us. So we're the best kept secret right now, but that'll change. But again, that publicity can also is also being aided by the CMC. We'll have a big event with the CMC and SMUD in the fall, and invite a number of fleets. And so whether it's the CMC inviting fleets or CalStrat or eSource, we'll have a fantastic crowd there. And then of course, as we're successful and we're ramping up, the intent is to put a final assembly in Sacramento. So I think, Neal, as part of the economic growth of of the area. I think that's probably music to your ears, because at the end of the day, we want to accelerate electrification. We want to add jobs. We want to, make that hub in Sacramento. So we're in Minnesota. Our R&D center and our technical partners, such as Knot Company, doing the integration work. We're all here. But at the end of the day, we need to put a final assembly facility and work with a partner on the body upfitting to really understand what the customer's needs are and get those complete vehicles into the hands of customers. And having a facility right in California is the way to do it. And that'll just promote additional growth.
Right. And I think that's a critical point when you talk about growing jobs. Not just here in California, but I think this is a challenge everywhere, because this is such a new industry. Having workforce training programs that are aligned with what the industry needs is really critical, and that's something that the CMC is built into its model here. That hopefully we can translate that across other regions as well. But with our finding members with Sac State University and UC Davis, and we've also had strong help from our local community college system here. It's all around creating that nexus point between industry and workforce training. So with the community college network, we can have these technical courses to help train people up for whether it's just maintenance programs or upfitting, through to PhD programs with UC Davis on some of the more theoretical side of things, and on the applied engineering side with Sacramento State University. We've sort of got the whole spectrum covered in terms of workforce training that is required in this new and growing space. So I think that's one element that the CMC is bringing to the table, is creating that communication point between where the industry is going, what innovation is happening, and then allowing these entities, whether they're universities or community colleges or technical training institutes, to curate and create these certified training courses to allow these industries to meet the need. Because as we all know, we've heard this over and over again in the couple of years leading up to launching the CMC. Once you get to commercialization, you're going to have to scale up your workforce to support that. And I think that's one of the things that comes up consistently, because nowhere has got an adequate solution to it. So that's something that we've baked into the model with CMC, is to try and solve for that problem, because we all know that's going to be a pain point in the future. So we're trying to get ahead of that issue. So I see we pulled up this slide here, which I think this is the best slide to just encapsulate what it is the CMC does. So as we talked about the members and clients and service providers, you can see the CMC sits at the center of that network, and then beyond that, we've got the broader mobility ecosystem. So this is if there's one takeaway from this discussion about how the CMC works and interacts, this is the slide to reference. So keen to take any more questions. So we've got another question here about favorite success stories. So I guess Zeus is my favorite. I have to say that. But we are very early ourselves as CMC. So we have a number of clients that we've worked with, but Zeus is the one that we've, I guess, done multiple different, we call them project lines with. So as well as the deployment piece, we've also worked with Zeus on, with CalStrat and the regulatory and compliance piece. We're exploring other project lines with them. So Zeus, to me, is the poster child of how to work with the CMC. So rather than coming in and using one service line, we've built an understanding of the Zeus product and the Zeus business plan, so that we're able to connect them not just with one service provider or member, but multiple. So that's the whole idea. As you come in, maybe, when we first started working with Zeus, it was purely okay, let's get them a deployment with SMUD, and now it's built over time into this multi-pronged project. So I think that is the best example we have.
Good answer, Neal. I like it.
Yeah. So it's hard for me not to say Zeus when you're here.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, we got another question. Beyond on-highway, can you speak to off-highway clients that you're supporting? I can't mention these specifically, but I can say off-highway is very much on our focus list. We recognize that off-highway, I guess, is maybe being a bit neglected in terms of some of the funding that's been available, certainly from a public funding standpoint, but we also recognize that is shifting pretty rapidly. There's also the benefit of off-highway, whether it's agricultural or construction equipment. There isn't the same sort of production cycle constraints that are the case on highway, so you can actually innovate a lot quicker when it comes to off-highway. There's a lot of interesting work that's happening in the heavy-duty off-highway space. I think everybody recognizes the constraints of the battery technology and the power output versus the weight that you have to overcome to make that a reality. But we're working with some companies that have got some pretty innovative solutions to that problem. So I think the off-highway space is something that we're focused on, and we've had a lot of discussions internally in terms of which subsectors the CMC can really focus and get behind, and off-highway is one of them. What funding options are available to startups? So I guess I would start by splitting it into dilutive and non-dilutive. So the CMC is set up with our partnership with CalStrat and Momentum to help companies that want to walk through different grant subsidies or incentives at a state and federal level. They'll be able to help you in a very consultative way. We've also got a platform called Open Grants that we've licensed with the CMC, so we can provide that platform to our clients, which basically is a way for you to search grants and incentives that are specific to what it is that you're innovating on. So it works a little bit like Spotify. You put in the keywords that you like, and the more you use it, the smarter it gets, and it will give you plenty of heads up on grants and subsidies that you would be eligible for, or you should consider applying. And then it can also connect you all the way through to a grant writer on the back end. So we've sort of got the consultative approach covered with CalStrat and Momentum, and then I would say this sort of technology-driven lighter touch approach with our Open Grants platform, which in and of itself is just a good way for you to be aware of what grants and subsidies are available, as I say, not just in the state of California, but federally as well. So that's on the non-dilutive side. And then obviously we have an agreement in place with Intertech Capital on the venture side to sit alongside the CMC and invest in companies that need venture funding. So we have both the venture side and the non-dilutive side covered. All right. Let's see if there's any more questions coming in. Not a minute. So I guess, we've got a couple of minutes left. I think what I would like to do is just try to bring to life this whole idea of the curated interaction that the CMC is putting together. So, obviously we've got our members, clients, and preferred service providers. So, depending on what stage you're at as a company, and what it is that you're trying to get to market will depend on the types of curated relationships that we'll put together. So we refer to it as programming and partnering. So from the membership side, you could be lightly involved in terms of just advising a company. You could be more involved. You could be advising and demonstrating technology, or you go all the way to the other end of the spectrum and actually deploying some of these technologies and paying purchase orders for them. So I like to think of those as the spectrum on the client side. If you're early stage, you maybe just want some advice. If you're mid stage, you want maybe some advice and some ability to demonstrate. And then later stage, when you're ready to go to market, you're looking for those purchase orders like Zeus has done with SMUD. So I think that's important to show how these two worlds of the clients and the members interact. And then sitting in between those, obviously we have our service providers and CMC that can help, with the relevant pain points so that you can overcome those to get you to the next stage. So I think, that's something that I think we outlined that on our website as well. This idea of programming and partnering to get you to full commercialization is really something that differentiates CMC from other entities that are out there. So we got some more questions coming in. Oh, let's see, Bill, a couple for you here. Do you want to take?
I can take it. So I think it's two questions from the same person. What is the one reason why you would re-sign with the CMC, or what is the one thing you would tell other startups? So I think on the first question, the flexibility with the CMC is really structured to really be customer centric. So as a client, we certainly signed a client agreement, but as needs arise, there's basically a statement of work that's written around each activity. So it's really catered to what your needs are. And I think as far as what I would tell other startups is, I think with most startups, you're probably a small team. You probably wear lots of hats. You need to really define on your team what are your strengths and where are your gaps, and then reach out to the CMC and try to fill those gaps with people and resources that the CMC can provide. And that way, you're not having to hire a bunch of people, but you're leveraging this this great ecosystem that the CMC has put together.
Great. And did you give your reason why you would re-sign with the CMC?
So in a backward way. So yeah. So you have a client agreement that's ongoing. And then it's not necessarily re-signing, but as you come up with activities that you want to work with the CMC on, each one of those activities is its own statement of work. So, I think as a company evolves in the beginning, you're going to have one set of needs, and then as you mature, the needs, the activities, the action items are going to change. You might branch off into adjacent markets. You might break off into adjacent products. And so there's going to be a continual, I think there's going to be a continual set of needs that you're going to look to the CMC for. So it's just really not really a matter of re-signing, but re-engaging with them whenever the need arises.
Great. So I know we've only got a couple minutes left. One question here around membership activities that the CMC offers. I think, as I was talking on the last part of this around this orchestrated interaction, I think that's really what the CMC is offering members, is this ability to play in the same sandbox as these client companies that are innovating new products and technologies. So you as a member can dictate well, not dictate, I guess. You can determine, how involved you are by either, offering yourself up as an advisor, offering your company up as a demonstration partner or a deployment partner. So I guess the overarching piece from a membership perspective is, you get to see technologies that are being created and developed. You can choose to be heavily involved in that process. And, the way we set this up is that you can do it on a subsector basis. So you could join as a member. Perhaps your utility wants to figure out the charging infrastructure problem. You could say, I really want to work with some of the clients in the infrastructure space. We're willing to deploy and test this technology. Then we can, curate those interactions with clients specifically around that infrastructure piece. So really it's around, being able to play in the same ecosystem as clients and innovators. And it's up to members as to how involved they want to be. But, just being involved with the CMC and seeing the innovation that's happening is important to start with. And then the level of interest and the level of involvement is down to the members themselves. And obviously the clients have to be okay with sharing their technology and their what they're working on with members. So it will be dictated by the clients as to what they will and won't share. I think that's important. All right. Not seeing any more questions. All right, I think that's it, Bill. So thanks for joining me and talking about your experience with the CMC. I think it's been a great partnership so far, and I think we're already at the start of it. So I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes, and we'll go from there. But I do want to tell everybody listening, we've got the booth open after this. From 11 till 12, and then again from 2 till 3 Pacific time. So if you want to learn more about anything, join me and my colleagues at the booth, and we can talk in more detail. But thanks, Bill. Appreciate your time.
Yep. Thank you, Neal.